Thank you, Dr. Mirza, for that extremely nuanced analysis of initial irrigation advantage and connecting it to green revolution and agricultural development. I now want to invite all three speakers to come to the panel. So it will give us a chance to synthesize the 3 morning sessions as well as give members of the audience a chance for a brief Q&A session. Dr. Mustafa, Dr. Malik, and Dr. Mirza. We can initiate the discussion with some questions from the audience.
I'm Sunala from University of Punjab. My question is to Dr. Mustafa. Sir, kindly, that was very nice presentation by you. I thought that it looks that Indus Basin is only Punjab and Sindh, and the conflicts are only between Punjab and Sindh. But Indus Basin is a cross-border basin. So can you suggest some co-production chances across the border with that conflicts? Please. Yeah, sir, Indus Basin is not only with Pakistan, it's with India as well. So how we make some co-production possibilities with India as well, with that with existing conflicts?
Can we take a couple of more questions and then we have for Dr. Mustafa and then we have him answer them together?
Thank you. Joyce Wu from the Australian National University. I can just be sneaky and get 2 questions. So for Drs. Mustafa and Dr. Malik, what are your thoughts? It was fascinating presentations about issues of scale and about particularly with Dr. Mustafa, about the notion of a more bottom-up approach to irrigation and water politics. I'm just wondering, what would your thoughts be about a more downward accountability in terms of government towards the broader community and society on water resource management, particularly for the marginalised, such as women? And also for Dr. Presenter, yes. That was a wonderfully, very detailed presentation. I'm just wondering, what are your thoughts on in terms of the issue, the implications of the findings, and how does that affect India's regional politics? Thanks.
We'll take one more before we let them.
Yeah, thank you very much. Sohail from WWF Pakistan. I have 3 questions for 3 presenters. Dr. Danish, very aggressive and true presentation, but I think that was the truth. I just want to ask, if business as usual, what's the future? Because you have drawn a clear picture regarding to the politics and everything, and what is business as usual, what will happen after 1 decade or 2. The same is the question with Dr. Malik. Regarding to the, yes, we can see most of the politicians have captured our assemblies and they are the experts. So what's the future implication? It will do like this, or do you have any suggestions for that? How we can just give some model or something like that? Dr. Mirza, I think it's good, and the studies have proven that the groundwater is now a good indicator for the green, economy. But nowadays, the latest research of the NASA and the raised technologies, and you may have seen those graphs. So is it possible in these scenarios that we can recommend that groundwater is now the alternate for the instead of the canal? Thank you.
I think Dr. Mustafa, why don't you take the initiative?
Thank you very much for those questions. The first question, how do we deal with India, or how is the co-production of the Indus any different in India? Is that what you're asking? There is no difference at all. In fact, the Indian approach towards water is identical to ours. In fact, you literally Siamese twins if you were to go to India. If any one of you have ever visited India, it is amazing. It is amazing that you'll almost sound like you're in an echo chamber or something like that. I mean, I find absolutely no difference. They are just as committed to groundwater management and dams and this and that and the other. The same sorts of stories that we tell about India, they tell about China. It's just surreal. It's really surreal. So there's no difference. As far as their approach towards the Indus, and not just the Indus, the rest of their water. In fact, sometimes I feel that they are more insane than we are at times. But anyway, the other one is the issue of scale over bottom-up approach. Well, I mean, how could I possibly disagree with the efficacy of a bottom-up approach? Except that, as Deep rightly pointed out, there's a lot of work by David Martin has pointed out, that it is in the genesis of the system that it is a hierarchical, and certainly with regard to land distribution issues, with regard to many of the factors that were pointed out by the other speakers, the prospects for real democratic intervention by the water users, particularly the landless water users, I am not very sanguine about it in the absence of meaningful land reforms, which of course politically at the moment in Pakistan is not even a conversation. So yes, we can all say it would be an excellent idea, it would be a wonderful idea. There's certainly a geography of land distribution, if you will, across the Indus. In certain districts there's more egalitarian land distribution and stuff. So at a local scale perhaps there is more of a prospect, but most of the times, I mean, what I find remarkable is that recently there have been this handing over of canal distributaries over to farmer associations. In principle, that should only have been done wherever you have more equal distribution of land. Turns out the only places where it has been done is where large landowners are in fact in charge, which is the antithesis of how it should be done. The same story with on-farm water management. They wanted to improve like 20,000 village water courses. What they should have been done is that should only have been done in saline groundwater. Except that in saline groundwater, typically you have small landowners. And in fact, almost 100% of the on-farm water management khala improvement was done in fresh groundwater where there is no need. In fact, it is counterproductive if you do that. Why? Because large landowners. So, don't get me started. What is the future of business as usual? The future is already here, sir. Future is already here. Get off the road, drive and go past the Haveli or the Dera or the large landowner. The future is already here and it is catastrophic. तो वो आप मुस्तकबिल का इंतजार न करें, वो ऑलरेडी हो रहा है. जो मैल नरिशमेंट की पोजीशन है इस मुल्क के अंदर, जो डिहाइड्रेशन की पोजीशन है, जो डिजीजेस की पोजीशन है, जो बुरा हाल है, कम से कम हम चंद एक लोगों ने जो जाकर जरा थोड़ा सा माहौल का जायजा लिया है, लाहौर से थोड़े से बाहर निकले हैं और जो हालात देखे हैं, तो अगर थोड़ी सी इंसानियत, थोड़ा सा दर्द दिल हो, तो I find it absolutely impossible to even articulate or emotionally get my head around कि इस मुआशरे में, इस मुल्क में पानी के हवाले से, कल्चर के हवाले से, सेहत के हवाले से, समाजी इंसाफ के हवाले से वो क्या है. तो मुझे तो फ्यूचर से कोई खास दिलचस्पी नहीं है, क्योंकि मुझे तो हाल इतना बुरा लग रहा है कि फ्यूचर की लग्जरी कम से कम मेरे पास है.
Thank you. Dr. Malik.
Very quickly, I mean, who would disagree with accountability from below? It's a great job. but ultimately one needs to think about politics and the power structure and how we could make the irrigation system work for the unconnected. Since partition, I think our irrigation system is by and large captured by vested interest groups. In fact, I think it won't be wrong to say that if you want to map the power structure of Punjab, irrigation is one of the key ways in which you could map it. Just go and look at who have been in charge of irrigation ministers. The large number of them that I've studied come from very large landed families. Much of the irrigation infrastructure serves those vested interest groups. In fact, if you go to those regions, you'll find that apart from the police and the revenue collector, the third most important official typically is the irrigation official. Several attempts have been made to introduce technological interventions that will increase the efficiency of the way in which water flows out. The telemetry system, for instance, was installed in the 1970s. It was not allowed to work. There are some new interventions that are coming through, and one can only hope that they will succeed. But by and large, the system works more in favor of the landed aristocracy, of those who are connected. The tail enders get a rough deal out of it, unless they protest. They don't get good enough water. And of course, a key issue is the under-invoicing of water. Water is hugely underpriced in this country. Of course, that certainly benefits certain sections. When you talk about the future, again, it's a very, very difficult question, and it's really connected to politics. Unless you change the way in which politics works at the local level. And for that, you need to have more consistent politics, less interruptions from military rule. You need to have consistent political elections. But then also, new political parties and the real agenda. At the moment, there's no real discourse on reform. For instance, there's hardly any discourse on land issue. We saw last couple of weeks when an attempt was made to highlight, obviously for personal political ends by the government, to talk about these land grants given to military officials. But I was noticing, since I've been here for the last 2 days, in the media, it was complete shut-off to much of the media. So people cannot talk a lot about issues about land distribution. And it's a large-scale state patronage whereby land is still continuing to be granted to these families. So, in terms of future possibilities, you are really pressed for very limited options unless you take the land question, you bring it again to the forefront. Whereas I think at the policy discourse is really there. Now, there is some work that even in the absence of land reform, there's second best institutions that could work. So there's Mary Sami's paper who talks about the way in which the introduction of motorway in certain districts of Punjab actually increased employment prospects for a lot of laborers. And that, in a sense, acted as a second best policy for increasing literacy. But if you look at patterns of literacy and development in many of these regions in South Punjab, they're really not very different from parts of Sindh and parts of Balochistan. It's massive variation.
So in response to I have 2 questions. In response to the first question on the implications of my findings that irrigation was important even more so after the advent of the Green Revolution. I think the implications of these findings are quite profound in the sense that, I try and show in my paper that it's still very much the colonial investments in canal irrigation that do matter, even so till today in India, even though groundwater irrigation has reduced that influence somewhat. I think it's very important to talk about how big infrastructure investments also have to interact with land reforms or more equitable distribution of land for these things to work. In the case of India, there was this pretty extensive implementation of land reforms which went along with investments which had been made in the colonial period, as well as groundwater irrigation, which picked up right at the time of the Green Revolution. So one of the reasons why it was such a success in India, like the adoption of hybrid varieties and how they improved yields in the more longer term, was the fact that they were also accompanied by land reforms. So it was also, so it can't be looked at, agricultural research or technology cannot be looked at in isolation aside from other institutional factors. So I think in terms of the implication of the findings, it's that it was only when you interact with other pieces of legislation or institutional changes that technology can really affect agricultural development or growth. How does it affect, how does my paper talk about, or that's one of the, in terms of regional differences in development or politics, that's one of the things that I'm trying to work on in my paper is to what extent does this heterogeneity between rice and wheat regions could explain regional differences in India even today, right? So, because rice regions have simply still so very dependent on irrigation, would that mean that the political economy of those regions is more centralized? Is it different from wheat regions in various ways in which I can extend my paper? So I'm certainly sure that that has an impact. If you have a region where a centralized canal network is still very important as opposed to another region where it's pretty much dispersed now across both canal irrigated and non-canal irrigated areas, I'm sure that has led to divergent paths in terms of development and also in terms of how the politics of that region is shaped. So that's one of the things that I'm trying to extend my paper towards, and I'm cautiously optimistic that that's, I'll find an explanation there somewhere. In response to the question about whether groundwater irrigation is still relevant, or in fact it's become more relevant, absolutely. The Green Revolution was pretty much a groundwater irrigation event, and that's what brought groundwater irrigation to the fore. But one important thing to realize about groundwater irrigation is that it doesn't work if you don't have a proper supply of electricity. Again, electrification, again, land reforms, it always works. Agricultural technology always works when it interacts with institutions and it also interacts with other kinds of infrastructure which will make it possible for you to use groundwater. Right? So, and also the incentives of farmers. Right? So sometimes farmers' incentives can have a huge impact on whether new technology is adopted or not. And the state of the technology itself, so where is rice research going now, or where is wheat research going now? It was going at a very high pace, right, in the initial phase of the Green Revolution, but now what is the new approach of research and whether that new research is being disseminated to the farm level in Pakistan and how it's being absorbed from international research institutes and how is it being disseminated to farmers on the ground, both in India and Pakistan, would mean whether groundwater matters or agricultural development will interact well with that.
Thank you, Dr. Mirza. There will be a chance to interact with the speakers during the tea break. We're a little hard-pressed on time and I think we'd like to stay on schedule. There is going to be a tea break. A tea is going to be right outside and we will reconvene in about 15 minutes in the same hall. I would like to thank all of this morning's speakers for today for wonderful presentations and an excellent discussion.